I'm reading some articles linked from the Max Kaiser website, I guess placed by Stacey Herbert, because I'm always watching that site. But I was already aware of the story of the farmers in India that are committing suicide. I guess because a year or a couple of years ago, the Indian government gave amnesty to a large number of them and pay off their loans. And now you can read in the article, I guess that Stacey linked to, in the Independent and in the New York Times, different articles about the situation. And what first initially puzzled me was this kind of take on it. It says, whether it was debt, shame or some other privation that drove Mr. Shende to kill himself rests with him alone. We'll never know. He was probably very embarrassed. That's a complete lie, because earlier I already read in another article, which is the sick net from the sick people, about a farmer and of course this plight of these farmers. And he writes that that his father was pressured into committing suicide by the moneylenders and the elderly of the village. It says here, once it reached a staggering sum, his debt, he was publicly threatened by the moneylenders and committed suicide. You see, that's just murder. And then he says, if I'm asked to pay my father's debt, I will have to commit suicide. So here we have a situation in which there's a problem, of course, with these farmers. And the moneylenders, they are basically asking them to kill themselves as soon as they default on their loan. And they charge 60% interest on an annual basis to these farmers who have nothing. But there's more to this story, because basically that pressure and that forced suicide is, let's say, the missing link in these articles in the New York Times. Because the New York Times will write about it and say, oh, it's so horrible, and you know they have lots of problems and it must be very depressing for them. Basically that's the spirit. And so they commit suicide, because what they describe is that the moneylenders have been making a lot of money lately, because the farmers have to, in order to produce, have to buy genetically modified crops from Monsanto. And these type of crops, they don't produce seeds usually that you can reuse. They're usually made infertile. But anyway, they have to buy those Monsanto crops because they are more productive. And to buy them, they need to loan more money, so they go deeper into debt. And well, who's very happy about that? Of course, the moneylenders. But you can also say, who's happy about that? That will be Monsanto, because now they're selling seeds that are much more expensive and a little bit more productive to desperate people that are under the, well, are socially coerced into accepting these loans. And if they default on the loan, then they are socially coerced to commit suicide, and maybe just directly coerced, because that's much more likely. And it's not one or two, but it's 1,500 and 3,000 in recent years, according to statistics from the Indian government. So there's, on a larger scale, of course, this could be basically seen as an attempt of the international banking system and the copyrighted and genetically modified producers of these seeds to capture the Indian cultural industry. And the government says there's nothing we can do, but of course there's something they can do. They can go in each village and kick those moneylenders out and start lending to these farmers. Because the only difference between these small farmers and the bigger farmers is the risk involved. And the risk is exacerbated by drought. So, you know, that's a manageable risk. You can make sure that these farmers have water. But that's not done. It's presented in the media to you and I as an accident, as a tragedy, as something that these farmers endure and then they decide to commit suicide. In both articles, it's not mentioned that it's basically a genocide by moneylenders. Once again, evil-minded, basically. I'm not used to using the word evil. I don't believe there's evil in the world. But there's just people that don't care at all. And then there's people that help them do that, like Monsanto. So I kind of agree with Max Kaiser, I guess. This is an evil company. And let's go to Karma Bank and make sure that that share of that company crashes eventually.